quarantined for a negative test, and then 24 hours later, he was going on a trip with his family.
Oh, I didn't
Pick
see
one.
that.
Which one is it?
So
Right?
they whisked him away from security, is what I was told.
Oh, little snowflake.
So no one at all has reached out for any kind of statement.
Why would they? The
Just
entire world is
ignoring the
fixated
thousands
on
and
this.
thousands of people.
We're just a little minority fringe.
Yes.
Yeah.
12 trucks.
12 trucks.
Yeah.
12 trucks? Who said 12 trucks?
The Liberal government is not who
I
said that.
think it was on the news media. I believe it was Sandy Ronaldo or something.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
BBC said about 100 trucks arrived in Ottawa.
That's
Yeah.
good, right?
I think it's a race to the bottom to see whose reputation is going to be destroyed first. Politicians like Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party, or the mainstream media. It's a tight race, right?
And do you see this making a difference? Like, ideally, yes, mandates will be dropped, but
It already has.
well, I saw in Saskatchewan.
They're getting rid of the COVID passport.
Ontario is pretty hard on their restrictions. They're one of the worst. Do you see them making a difference in Ontario? Or do you think they're going to dig in for as long as they can?
You bring up something very interesting, which is we all talk about Justin Trudeau because we started with the mandates and the entry passport into Canada. I call it the Stasi passport. Okay, but let's not forget our provincial leaders. And all the provincial leaders that have been locking us down, you know what they are? They're conservative. So we're not going to play this game anymore that the Liberals are good and the Conservatives are, the Liberals are bad and the Conservatives are good. No, they're all horrible. All of them. They should be ashamed of themselves. So this is not a partisan movement. That's why you don't see political parties. You know, they're all trying to posture. Aaron O'Toole showed up with a trucker. But if you look at even the picture they took, nobody around Aaron O'Toole is even remotely interested in the conversation. So the first thing is, I think we're going to see shifts, hopefully, within the direction of the Conservative Party. Aaron O'Toole can be yoinked out and replaced with somebody. And I think you're starting to see some waves also in the Liberal Party. That's why you notice they were floating stories about, well, maybe Chrystia Freeland would be the new leader. Good God, would be just as bad, if not worse. But at least there's some sort of shift. They're testing in terms of messaging. Is it time to get rid of Prime Minister Blackface? I mean, Trudeau.
Are you guys pleased? Maxime Bernier has sort of had a rally here in downtown Ottawa today. Are you associated with him at all? Are you pleased with the support he's given the convoy? What's your thoughts on the...
We took a vote as an organization. All the committee heads are the organizers, and we are not partisan. We had he reached out to us, and a couple other ones reached out to us and wanted to get up and speak, and we said no. That's not what we're about. This is a grassroots movement, and no politicians are going to represent us. I mean, they're kind of the reason we're in this mess in the first place.
And the last thing we want is to have this whole idea of unity amongst Canadians from across the political spectrum and the cultural spectrum to have that be detonated by politicization. So we're trying to avoid that. This is for Canadians, not for political parties.
When Parliament resumes this week, are you guys expecting that the convoy that's clogging up Wellington is going to cause them any difficulties? Do you expect the Liberals to even show up to work when you guys are here? Will the Conservatives, have you any idea?
Well, I think on the Liberal side, you'll see our strong leaders hide behind Zoom. Which is funny, an app that Google and Tesla said they will not allow on their platform because it's spyware from the Chinese government. Yet our government is using it. Anyways. But so I anticipate them hiding behind Zoom. And the Conservatives, I anticipate them slowly trickling out. I have had people in the Conservative Party reach out to me, MPs who I've known for quite some time. Quietly, we're supportive, and I'm like, that's great. You can get out there and show yourself and show that you're a leader, because you don't have a leader right now. So that, by the way, that would be my message to the Conservative Party. We all know Aaron O'Toole. Great. We look forward to meeting the leader of the Conservative Party.
But could I just, so I can get it on tape,
Yep.
could you guys state your names and your organization?
Sure.
Tamara Leach, Freedom Convoy 2022. Organizer, one of the co-organizers.
Can I spell your name?
Yes, of course. It's TAMARALICH.
Benjamin Victor. guy, drive the truck, do a few other things, but that's primarily my focus here.
Where did you come from?
Ontario, from Toronto.
Chris Barber. I'm a business owner, trucking company owner in Saskatchewan, cross border. The guy that put all this kind of together with a few other people by an angry social media post. Barber, B-A-R-B-E-R.
And just one more question from me, kind of on a specific topic, but in general, I know a lot of people have kind of given up on humanity in general over the course of all this. But for myself personally, like on the convoy out here at the stop, seeing people going around giving out boxes and boxes of party sandwiches, bags made up, like it had us in tears, bags with kids drawing notes for the truckers and writing them letters on cookies. Like
it was so moving. And we
were,
you know, that's gonna make me emotional, but we had so many people that would come up and hug us and just say, you know, tell their stories about how they've lost everything, or their mother died alone, or, you know, this lady, she was from Ontario. She had a 12-year-old boy who has muscular dystrophy, and he was rapidly losing the mobility in his hips because he couldn't go to a swimming pool for his swimming therapy.
oh,
But underneath all those stories that are so heartbreaking is just this determination and this resilience, right, of the Canadian people. And I mean, we've already won, because look at all those people out there. Yesterday, I've never seen so many smiles, right? Everyone's got hope again, and everyone's feeling pride to be a Canadian again, which is something that we haven't felt for so long, which is really important. So in that sense, we've already won.
Do you think this was more of a cultural moment in Canadian history than it was political?
Absolutely.
You guys oppose the vaccine mandates, but not necessarily vaccines.
To be clear, we're not
You're not
anti-vax.
anti-vaccine.
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's been a narrative that's been put out since the start.
Yeah, I'm fully vaccinated.
You're fully
I am.
vaccinated. Okay.
So,
And so you're just opposed to the vaccine mandates. So my question is, for a lot of these truckers, there's a lot of cross-border trucking that happens between the U.S. and Canada. And so how are you, they're going to need to prove that they're vaccinated when they go into the U.S. So how are you dealing with that issue?
well, what I explained when I was on Tucker Carlson,
Okay.
you know, from some of our sources, that the U.S. government, the Biden administration, had zero interest in this program. It was the Trudeau government that lobbied and reached out to the Biden administration and encouraged them to adopt this this process, this platform, just like in Canada. So the Americans have us to thank for it. And as I explained, we don't know. Everybody's trying to figure out, people on the inside, what were the terms of the deal? Why are the U.S. Why is the U.S. accommodating Canada? We don't know. Are they sharing data amongst each other? Is stuff being funneled to the NSA, and they're going to use that to create a Canadian database? We don't know.
Well, while the Supreme Court struck down Biden's mandate about a couple of weeks ago, that's not going to apply to Canadian truckers. They'll still have to show proof of vaccination when they enter the U.S. So how, I mean, are they, I'm just trying to understand how your opposition to vaccine mandates then applies to what truckers are going to be confronted with when they go to the U.S.
Well, I think what you'll see is there will be, once things change here, the mandate and the passport is removed from Canada.
Do you think that's going to happen? Do you think Justin Trudeau will have a change of heart?
If he wants to eat, yeah, because this is the supply chain saying we're not doing it. And I think once that change happens here, that will just be further motivation for the United States. I mean, all they're doing is the Biden administration is making the opposition stronger. And we know who that opposition is, and we don't want to say that word because the mainstream media will lose their mind. But they're just making that opposition stronger.
Can I interject something here? Just as well, you just mentioned the supply chain. The trucking industry is the supply chain at the end of the day. About 60% of everything across the border carried by trucks. All your food carried by trucks. You got a phone? It was in a truck at some point. Before the pandemic, and this goes back more than 5 years, the trucking supply chain itself in Canada was suffering. they can't get parts, they can't get tires, they can't get electronics. The price of this stuff is going through the roof, and a good deal of it is because Chinese mainland companies control most of the parts industry now. Brake drums for a Class 8 truck are getting hard to find. Tires are hard to find. All the little black boxes that make the three main computers on a Class 8 truck work are becoming impossible to find. Also, the cost. It used to be $20 for a headlamp, and a truck driver and a Phillips screwdriver, the number 3 bit. 20 minutes, $20, and he goes. Now, if he blows a headlamp, he's got to go into the dealer, spend $1,000 Canadian for a headlamp assembly with an LED module and a wiring harness to replace it, and he can't do it himself. So I did an interview with Richard Surrett on Saga 690 AM. It's been posted on the internet if you want to go look for it. And we explained in detail how the trucking industry in Canada is being slowly strangled. And the single biggest problem is parts are not available, and the parts are phenomenally expensive.
And I'll give you a direct,
and this is China's hand on them.
I'll give you a direct example. I just blew my turbo last month on my truck, which happens over time. I got the last turbo in the entire province, and normally it would have been X number of thousands of dollars. It was 20% more, and it was the only one I could get. So what a lot of us have been doing as well is any sort of foreseeable maintenance we would need in the next year, we're just buying it now and either stocking it or putting it on the truck now, because we don't know if we're going to be able to get parts, 6 months from now.
And this problem is 5 years old. The pandemic just made it worse.
I do have a question. In Quebec, we've seen some of the worst mandates anywhere in the world, really. I've noticed there's a lot of Quebecers out protesting today and yesterday. What's been the response from the Quebec trucking industry? Have you noticed it been stronger than you expected?
Yes, and I was in Massachusetts last week, and I was at a destination waiting for an hour, 2 hours, and there was another Canadian, a Quebec trucker who came in, so we ended up having coffee together in his cab. He's like, his English was okay, he's like, I need to practice English, come. But yeah, he was telling me how ridiculous that province is, the lunatic that is running that province. Aviva Prize is covering this online. The guy's got to be thrown out of office and be charged on crimes against humanity. Absolutely unacceptable. But yeah, the entire truck industry in Quebec has been very, very supportive. That's why we had a convoy coming from there.
Yeah.
And because of him, we have him to thank, I believe, for the extent of the unification of Quebecers with the rest of Canada, with Albertans. You know how many times I saw people from Alberta and Quebec yesterday just coming together, talking with each other? It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
We were at the Chateau Laurier yesterday chanting Liberté, Liberté. And so, here's a bunch of Anglos, a bunch of people from Ontario standing next to Quebecois folks with an Alberta flag chanting Liberté. And it's kind of like, wow, that was Canadian. And a guy holding a Quebec flag with a hockey stick. I almost died.
And what's so amazing about it is, I grew up in Toronto.
Yeah.
I live in downtown Toronto. I always had family in Alberta, in Calgary. We've discussed it before. But I always loved going to Quebec.
Yeah.
So I was always in this weird sphere where I'd go to see my family in Alberta, and they go, oh, Toronto thinks it's the center of the world, and Quebec wants all the transfer payments. All of that is dying now. And they're realizing that it's these lunatics in our government that are causing all of it. But all of us on the ground, yeah, we have cultural differences, but we respect our cultural differences. And they're features. They're features that we can, embrace of each other. So, yeah.
One of the ironies of this is that truckers from Quebec are going to be a part of a Canadian cultural moment where we reestablish unity in Canada.
That's right.
And if that doesn't bend your mind, I don't know what will.
I have another question. I've been looking at Twitter a lot, and those who oppose the convoy, they'll call you guys the Karen convoy. They'll be like, well,
They're so funny.
they'll say, why don't they just take the vaccine? Why, from the conversations you've had, why for these people, why do you think it's their choice, is so unfortunate? What would you have to say to people who simply, have trouble understanding why somebody is choosing?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. Firstly, there's not one reason. We're all individuals, so people have different reasons for it, right? I have friends who had the first vaccine, and they had this major adverse reaction, and they started getting bruises all over them. They went to their doctor, and their doctor said, you know what? just don't take the next one. I'm not sure why. Let's just hold on. So there's those people. Then there's other people that I know, like the guy who broke the story on the convoy, Mark Petroni. He was the first one ever to cover it. Remember?
Yeah.
He would get vaccinated, but he's not going to have the government to tell him what to do. No. I am my own autonomous person. So there's a whole bunch of variables and different reasons why people who don't get the vaccine haven't gotten it, and that's their choice.
So Benjamin, how much support did you receive from the different communities from Canada, Latin communities, especially those who escaped, from the totalitarian governments and come to Canada and feel like, oh, things are changing also in Canada?
What's crazy is the primary communities, because it's not just one, that have been supportive of us from a geopolitical and human rights standpoint has been people who came here from Eastern Europe.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people from Eastern Europe descent, whether they're from Poland or Belarus or whatever, that are in the trucking industry. We think, oh, that's just your average white Canadian. No, talk to him. Hear his accent. He's from Eastern Europe. And those